They didn't even knock. They just walked in like they owned the place. That moment is burned into my memory. I was wiping down the counter of my bakery, the scent of vanilla and roasted coffee hanging in the air. I had just locked up, or so I thought, when the door creaked open. My husband's mother, his two sisters, and his older brother came marching in like a silent army. No greeting. No warning. Just silent eyes sweeping across my space like vultures circling a dying animal. I didn't know it yet, but that was the day everything changed. I had always been a people pleaser, calm, careful, the kind of person who avoided confrontation like it was fire. Marrying into his family was hard, but I tried to adjust. I tried to impress them. I cooked for them, supported them, even gave free cakes during birthdays from my bakery. Still, I was never enough. Not smart enough. Not family enough. Not obedient enough. But the bakery? That was mine. It was the one place that held my identity. I built it from a $500 loan and sleepless nights, baking with blistered hands while learning how to do taxes from YouTube. My husband helped, sure, but only in the beginning. As it grew, he grew distant. He wanted me home more. Wanted me to relax. Said the bakery was taking too much of my energy. I didn't listen. I couldn't. I had fought too hard for this dream. I should have paid more attention to his silences. That night, as his family walked in, I felt the balance shift. It wasn't just a visit. It was a claim. His brother, Anwar, leaned against the fridge like he already knew the floor plan. His mother pointed at my new espresso machine like she was making inventory. My husband stood behind them, quiet, avoiding my gaze. "What's going on?" I asked, trying to laugh. No one smiled. Then the bomb dropped. "We've talked as a family," his mother said slowly, "and we've decided it's time this business became part of the family structure. We think you've had a good run, but it's time for some real leadership." I blinked. My heart went cold. I looked at my husband, and he didn't say a word. Real leadership? I wanted to scream.
Cry.
Throw them out. But I froze. Like my body disconnected from my soul. I had spent years surviving emotional landmines with these people, trying to prove I was good enough. And now they were casually hijacking my life's work? I tried to speak, but nothing came out. Only the sound of the mixer humming in the background. Later that night, he told me calmly over dinner, like it was nothing, that his family would now be co-owning the bakery. Legally, he had a 50% stake since we were married. He said they had already spoken to a lawyer. They'd make it a family-run business. A new logo, new policies, new staff. I wasn't part of the plan. That night, I cried in the bathroom for over an hour. Not just because I felt betrayed, but because I realized something darker. I had married into a family that never saw me as a person, only as a stepping stone. But what could I do? If I fought back, I'd lose everything. If I stayed silent, I'd become a ghost in my own life. The next few weeks were a blur. His sister took over the cashier system, changed the POS software, and didn't even bother asking me how it worked. Anwar began holding strategy meetings in my back office. My husband stood by, always choosing them over me. And me? I was slowly being erased. But I wasn't going to go down without a fight. I started documenting everything: emails, bank transactions, text messages. I knew I couldn't win emotionally, but maybe legally? Maybe quietly? I just needed time. Time to plan my next move. Then something strange happened. They started failing. Within a month, regular customers were complaining. Orders were wrong. Cakes were burnt or bland. The sister fired 2 of my best workers because she didn't like their tone. Anwar started pocketing extra cash, thinking no one would notice. They raised prices on the menu without understanding why the community loved us in the first place. They thought success came from owning a space. They didn't know it came from caring. Meanwhile, I played my role perfectly, quiet, detached, watching. I pretended to be broken, lost, resigned. But inside, I was sharpening knives. One night, I got an anonymous message from a former employee. "They're talking about removing your name from everything," it said. "They're trying to trademark it under a new name." I smiled. That was the mistake I needed them to make. Because you see, While they were busy replacing me, I had already filed for a new business license under a new name, in a new location. I'd been saving, quietly planning, even had loyal clients secretly helping me. A friend of mine leased a beautiful little place 3 blocks down. Same bakery heart, but new name, new energy. The night I walked away from the bakery, I took nothing but a recipe book and a fire in my chest. I left the keys on the counter. Said nothing. No fights. No warnings. Just a quiet goodbye. They thought I was defeated. That's what made it so satisfying. Just days after I walked away, my phone started buzzing nonstop. Friends. Old clients. Even former employees. What happened? They asked. Why aren't you at the bakery? But the best ones were, please tell me you're opening somewhere else, we miss you. Word spreads fast in small towns. I didn't respond right away. I needed silence to work my magic. The new place was small, humble, but it had soul. The walls still smelled of fresh paint, and the ovens hadn't even been fired up yet. But every time I stood in that empty space, I could feel my heartbeat sinking with the walls. This wasn't just a business. This was my rebirth. Back at the old bakery, chaos had started to take root. My ex-husband's family had underestimated everything: inventory, staffing, marketing, and most importantly, relationships. They treated customers like interruptions, not the lifeblood they were. Reviews tanked. The neighborhood Facebook group exploded with complaints. They're rude now. Miss the old owner. Something's off. Won't be going back. And yet, they doubled down. Instead of fixing anything, they blamed the town. Blamed bad attitude. Raised prices again. Added cheap, trendy items to the menu that didn't even make sense. Red velvet matcha? Oat milk steak sandwiches? They were trying to rebrand something they never understood in the first place. Meanwhile, I launched my new shop quietly but strategically. I didn't post on social media at first. No announcement. Just soft whispers to loyal clients. Come by on Friday. But don't tell anyone yet. That Friday, we sold out in 3 hours. By the second week, there was a line out the door. I still remember that day. Flour on my apron, sweat on my forehead, and a grin on my lips as I peeked outside to see the crowd. I felt alive again. Free. And maybe a little smug. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. One morning, I walked in early to prep, only to find a car parked outside. His car. My ex. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, looking lost. Like he couldn't quite believe I had rebuilt without him. I could see it all over his face, the realization, the regret, the stunned silence. He finally spoke. You look happy. I didn't reply. He stood in the doorway, like a man frozen in time. His eyes scanned the shelves, the layout, the subtle glow of warm lights over fresh pastries. This place feels like the old bakery used to, he said, voice almost a whisper. No, I said. It feels like me. Then I turned away. But that was just the beginning. His sister started calling mutual friends, begging for consulting help. Anwar tried poaching one of my old bakers, offering double pay, which backfired spectacularly when the baker posted screenshots online. And his mother? She started spreading rumors. She stole our clients. She cheated the family. But no one believed them anymore, because the truth was starting to show. I was building something rooted in love and integrity. They were just digging holes and calling them foundations. Weeks passed. My business bloomed like spring after a long winter. I hired back my original team. Our Sunday brunch menu became legendary. And people, real people, showed up not just for the food, but for the peace. The kindness. The feeling they used to get before everything turned sour. And them? They were falling apart. Financially, emotionally, even legally. Turns out, they hadn't paid the right permits. The city shut them down for 3 days due to violations. A disgruntled former employee reported them for wage theft. And word got out that Anwar had been skimming profits. Again. But the final nail? They tried to sue me for stealing their concept. I couldn't stop laughing when I read the letter. Stealing? My own recipes? My own designs, energy, heart? My lawyer handled it with ease. We countersued. And the best part? The judge threw it out with a warning. Do not mistake shared ownership for original creation. I framed that quote in my office. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. One afternoon, I received a call from a local food journalist. She was doing a piece titled Comeback Queens, Women Who Rose from Ashes. She had heard whispers about my story. When she asked if I'd like to be featured, I smiled. Yes, I said. I think it's time people knew what really happened. The article went viral. Not because I aired dirty laundry, but because people saw themselves in my journey. The woman who stayed quiet for too long. The woman who was taken for granted. The woman who finally said, enough. That night, I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat by the window. I watched the lights of my new bakery glowing down the street. Peaceful. Untouched. Mine. And somewhere across town, they sat in a quiet, failing bakery. Bitter, broke, and blaming the world. But I didn't feel sorry for them. Because this wasn't just revenge. It was justice. And more than that, it was healing. It was a Wednesday morning when I got the message. Have you seen the news? My assistant texted. I hadn't. I was prepping fresh brioche for the breakfast crowd. But curiosity tugged at me, so I checked. There it was, front page of the local business section. Family-owned bakery closes amid financial scandal and public outcry. There was a picture of the old storefront. The closed until further notice sign hung crooked on the glass. And beneath it, a list of allegations, unpaid taxes, failed health inspections, employee lawsuits, and declining revenue. They were done. My chest didn't fill with pride. It filled with something quieter, something sacred. Closure. For years, I had given everything to that place, to that family, to that man. And now the universe had spoken. Loud and clear. People started flocking to my new bakery like never before. The line wrapped around the block, even on weekdays. But something had changed. It wasn't just about the pastries or coffee or warm lighting. It was about resonance. People felt safe here. Seen. Heard. I began hosting Sunday morning reflection circles. Women of all ages came. Some with tears, some with laughter, some with both. One woman shared how she finally left a toxic 10-year relationship after watching my journey unfold online. Another woman said she hadn't baked since her divorce 5 years ago, but now she wanted to try again. And in those quiet moments between the clinking of coffee mugs and soft music in the background, I realized this was always the real recipe. Not flour and sugar, but courage and truth. Then, the unexpected happened. One afternoon, just before closing, I saw her. His mother. She stood outside the door for nearly 5 minutes before stepping inside. Every eye in the bakery followed her. She looked smaller somehow, shrunk by the weight of everything that had fallen apart. She came to the counter, cleared her throat, looked at me, then away, then back again. I wasn't a fair person to you, she said. The room fell silent. I didn't understand how much you did. How much of that place was you, and I should have. I stared at her, heart steady. You are cruel, I said, softly but firmly. She nodded, eyes wet. I know. There was no dramatic apology. No begging for forgiveness. Just a raw, broken woman acknowledging the role she played in burning down the house she once called home. I handed her a loaf of sourdough. Fresh. Golden. Still warm. She looked at it like it was gold. It's on the house, I said. This one's for your honesty. She left with tears in her eyes. That moment wasn't revenge. It was release. Soon after, my ex-husband emailed me. Just 3 words. You were right. I didn't reply. Not because I hated him, but because I had moved so far beyond him. Replying felt like turning around on a path I had no intention of walking again. The bakery became more than a business. It became a symbol of survival, of reinvention, of reclaiming what's yours. A documentary filmmaker reached out to capture my story. A publisher sent a proposal for a memoir. But I wasn't chasing fame. I was protecting legacy. The same way I protected my recipes. my peace, my identity. And you know what was beautiful? People started coming to me with their own ashes, their burned-out dreams, their stolen beginnings. I thought I couldn't start over, but then I saw you did. One woman came in with a ring still on her finger, trembling. I just walked out after 18 years, she said. I have no idea who I am, but I saw your post, and I thought maybe you'd understand. I took her hand and said, "You're already more than halfway there." Because healing isn't loud. It's not a headline or a courtroom victory. Healing is quiet. It's the moment you realize you haven't cried in 3 days. It's the sound of your own laughter returning. It's the stranger who looks at you and says, "There's something different about you." It's the smell of cinnamon and coffee and your name on the sign outside the window. And most of all, it's waking up and knowing you did not break. You broke through. Months passed. The seasons turned, summer to autumn, autumn to a crisp winter that wrapped the city in quiet reflection. My bakery, now affectionately nicknamed Phoenix Bread by customers, thrived beyond anything I'd imagined. What started as survival bloomed into significance. But healing, I learned, is not linear. One evening, I stayed late to test a new holiday recipe. The bakery was dim except for the soft glow of fairy lights strung across the window. Outside, snow began to fall, gently, slowly, like the world exhaling. Then a knock at the door. I turned, confused. We were long closed. I walked toward the entrance and froze. It was him, my ex-husband. He stood there, older somehow, more worn. A scar I'd once known like the back of my hand now felt like a distant memory. His eyes met mine, unsure, maybe even ashamed. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry," he said, his voice hoarse. "For everything." The wind whispered around us. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "I know," I said quietly. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, folded paper. "This is from the lawyer. The last of what I owe you. The business, it's officially out of my hands. Bankruptcy's done. It's over." I took the paper, looked at it. Clean. Final. Closure on every legal thread. He looked down at his boots. "I think about what we had, what we ruined. What I ruined. You were the best part of it." There was a time I would have cried. A time I would have begged him to see that. But now, I simply nodded. "You should go," I said gently. He nodded back. No fight. No protest. Just an understanding that the chapter was done. He turned and walked away into the snow. I stood there for a moment, watching him vanish into white. The past, fading with every step. That night, I went upstairs to my tiny apartment above the bakery. I sat by the window, holding a cup of chamomile tea, and stared out at the quiet city. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. And just as I began to close the blinds, something caught my eye. Across the street, written in frost on a parked car window, were the words, "You did it." I smiled. It wasn't his handwriting. It wasn't anyone I knew. But somehow, I knew exactly who it was for. Maybe a customer. Maybe the universe. Maybe a version of me from years ago, whispering back through time. "You did it." And I had.